With movies like The Godfather, Goodfellas, and Casino, the world of the Mafia is something that is well known. However, in the game world, selections for the fictional Mafia experience are not so easy to find. From EA's Godfather series to the mentions in the Grand Theft Auto series, there haven't been many games willing to take you into this violent world. Finally, the sequel to the original Mafia comes out after 8 years, but can it take the reins from the masterpiece that is the original?
Listen, you gotta understand, a person in my position's gotta be careful.
Certainly.
So you won't mind if I give Joe a call, right?
Nah, go ahead.
Now, where'd I put his number? Hey, here it is.
The story follows Vito Scaletta, who comes to America with bright eyes and hopes of a new life. His dreams of striking it big in America are quickly dashed when he sees what things are truly like for his people in Empire Bay. As he gets older, he learns that his father is a deadbeat drunk and that he has to hustle to make things better in his life. Unfortunately, he fails a robbery attempt and is quickly arrested by the police. Yet instead of going to prison, he opts into joining the war effort to take over Sicily. Vito receives a slight injury during the war and is placed on leave. He returns home to find his best friend Joe waiting for him. Within an hour or so, Joe somehow gets Vito released from his duties in the military. He returns home to find out that his father borrowed money from a loan shark, and now his mother and sister are in debt for thousands of dollars. Vito enlists help from his best friend Joe, who is eager to get Vito into the business of odd jobs. The game follows Vito through 15 chapters of his life, and what a crazy life he leads. Unlike most protagonists in these types of games, Vito knows exactly what he is. The ups and downs in his life are from him doing what he needs to survive. He doesn't have a hero complex while killing a slew of people. He does what he's told so that he can get paid and stay afloat. Mafia II sells the story beautifully, and it will leave you wondering if Vito will ever make something of himself.
What, the both of us? I ain't no queer. I ain't gonna lock myself in a cabinet with another...
Just get in there, Leo. We don't have time.
Hey, don't stand so close.
You move over.
No, you move over.
Shh, shut up.
Moving around in Mafia 2 is as basic as it comes in third-person shooters. You can use the shoulder buttons to sprint or climb over an object. Vito can also snap in and out of cover at the press of a button, and he also has the option of staying in cover while moving around corners. The actual shooting mechanics are typical to the genre. You pop out of cover and shoot whatever is in your way. Unlike most games though, standing behind a thin wooden plank for too long will most likely get you killed. Enemies will tear down your defenses, but you can also do the same to them. There aren't any real differences to spice up the tried and true formula, but it works well, and you can also lock on the enemies who are within your aim radius. The guns range from various pistols and machine guns of the era. Vito will rely on Magnums, Thompsons, MP40s, and the old reliable shotgun. The pistols have small differences to them, while the machine guns on the other hand feel mostly the same. The real meat and bones here would have to be the melee system. It's pretty simplistic, but it is a ton of fun later on in the game. Vito can release a slew of punishing combos early on, but later he'll be able to dodge and counterattack enemies. As he becomes more of a pugilist, he'll eventually be able to grapple and finish off opponents when their defense is down. On top of that, he can use the environment for a brutal instant knockout. The combat is offset by various elements like stealth missions, car chases, or just selling some cigarettes out of the back of a truck. So you won't spend every waking moment shooting at bad guys. You'll even complete menial tasks while trying to work your way up in the mob. Being the ultimate button man comes at a price, as everyone else stands around while you bury the bodies. Driving cars through a large city is typical of games like Grand Theft Auto, except in Mafia 2, if the police catch you speeding or banging into other cars, you're in for a ticket. Luckily, you can remedy this by switching on the speed limiter, which keeps you out of sight of the cops. I suggest getting used to this, since in Mafia there are no waypoints to skip to at all. Much like its predecessor, you'll spend at least 5 to 10 minutes traveling from place to place. Much of this time is spent listening to idle conversation between Vito and his cohorts.
Okay, so Vito, what was the one thing you missed the most when you was in the camp?
Freedom.
Yeah, well, but besides that.
Booze, broads, baseball, everything.
Now you get closer.
What are you guys taking me to a baseball game?
While in other instances, you'll be weaving through traffic trying to reach your destination in the nick of time. It's quick to note that Mafia 2 bears a resemblance to Grand Theft Auto, but it is truly more of a linear game that uses the city to tell a story. Because there is very little that you can do on your own in the city besides steal cars or rob shop owners. These options are more like tasks as opposed to hunting in Red Dead Redemption or going on dates in Grand Theft Auto 4. These are just to get you a little bit more money for tuning up your car or going to the tailor or getting the gun you always wanted, which isn't necessarily a bad thing at all, but don't expect too much outside of the storyline path.
Never in my life had I seen anything as fantastic as Empire Bay. It was beautiful.
Empire Bay might possibly be the best looking place since Liberty City, from the large scale bridges with looming high rises in the backdrop, to the detailed rustic buildings with tons of denizens going about their business. The cars and the people capture the feeling of the era, and the small events scattered throughout the game helps with the immersion, from the scar on Vito's jawline to a man trying to reach out to his dying friend. This game has some pretty good things going for it. The sound plays a big part in all of this, with an excellent cast for the main players in Mafia II. Vito comes off as a very convincing yes man, while Joe plays his role as the charismatic loudmouth who can kill at the drop of a hat. Even some of the bit players like the Irish boxer Brian O'Neill come off as interesting characters. To top it all off, the soundtrack contains some pretty good songs from the era, and the news will keep you updated on your violent events around town. However, there are a few instances where you're pulled out of the world by the AI or the physics. A good majority of this happens when following NPCs up or down stairs. For some odd reason, they'll always find a railing to walk into for 3 seconds before adjusting themselves. Another issue is how the characters interact with each other. They'll generally slide in front of each other before the animation starts. There are also some issues with the stealth kills, where Vito will choke air while the enemy runs away and dies. Also, the police seem to appear in the area as soon as you commit a crime. The minute an alarm goes off, the police will somehow have already arrived and will descend upon you. Another issue involving the cops is that they'll want to arrest you for no particular reason. You'll be driving along obeying the traffic laws and all of a sudden the police are banging into the back of your car. There's also an odd bug with some of the civilians calling the police on Vito even if he's just walking into a shop. They'll duck and scream as the police come driving up and start firing at Vito just because he wanted to buy some new clothes. Mafia II is a story-driven game that plays out like a movie. While it does have a few bugs here and there that can ruin the immersion, it tells the story of a mobster who just can't win extremely well, and the game captures the era that it emulates perfectly. Mafia II features 15 chapters that clock in between 12 to 14 hours of gameplay. It's a non-stop ride that's entertaining the whole way through, and the ending is just as cruel as the original. So Mafia receives a B+ from Half-Ass Gaming, and hopefully we'll have less of a wait for Mafia 3.
What do you say now, Porky?
What do I gotta say?